Hey there. So, the honey dipper is a pretty simple project. It's a small scrap of wood. Put it on your lathe, you turn it into... I have another video where I'm making, I think this one. I don't know. But, you know, the honey dipper. Use it to dip your honey out of your jar. Put on stuff. As you can see, I've made a few honey dippers. This one's made of maple. This one's made of walnut. I kind of wanted to spice it up. I don't want to show you how to do it. I want to show you how to overdo it. So let's check out the process. So I started with two pieces of wood, one maple and one walnut. Both were about 1 1/8 inch square, and both were about 6 inches long. After I cut them into 3 equally sized strips, brought them back over to the bench and I switched the middles. Then I glued everything back together into 2 separate blanks again. Didn't glue them together. Brought everything back to the bandsaw, rotated the blanks 90 degrees, and then I cut them into thirds again. Then it's just a matter of switching the middles a second time. And as you see on the ends, you've got the checkerboard pattern. Now once everything was glued back up, everything didn't quite line up with itself. There were some high spots and low spots. I didn't want that to affect when I went to cut the cross cuts. So I clamped them into my vise and I just smoothed out all 4 sides of each of the blanks. Using a 90-degree sled, I cross-cut the blanks the same width that the strips were cut originally. It's important to keep your fence in the same position for all the cuts in this process so that your cubes stay cubes. So they'll stay even and they'll all be the same size. You see, I cut a small slice off the front to even it up. And when I get to the last slice, it's not quite safe to stick my finger in there where the blade is, so I use a spare piece of wood to hold it in place while I'm putting it through there. I took everything back over to the bench, and this time I swapped every other slice from the 2 blanks. This creates the checkerboard pattern, and I glue everything up again. So that process leaves me with 2 blanks that match. Both walnut and maple in a checkerboard pattern. Next thing we got to do is we got to put it up on the lathe and make it into a honey dipper. Turning the honey dipper is a pretty simple process. I start by rounding off the blank with a square carbide tool. I start slow when rounding the edges and then raise the speed as the blank gets more and more round. Once it's round, I make a mark with the parting tool just to show myself where the end of the piece is, and I switch to a round carbide tool. To get into the tighter spots there, I switch to a small spindle gouge. This is part of a pin turning kit, but it gets into those areas that the round carbide tool can't get to. Next I take a pencil to mark off where the slots are going to be. I cut those in with the parting tool again. Do some finishing up cuts And now it's time to sand. I sanded with 220 and then 320. Once it's sanded down, we want to take it off of the lathe, and we want to cut those little ends off with a chisel. And you can't get it perfect, but what I like to do is after I've got them cut off, I'll take my piece of wood with sandpaper on it and flatten off the ends. I think it gives it a nice look. Hit it with the 320 to get the scratches out from the sandpaper on the block of wood. And then I'm going to finish it with the Howard's Butcher Block Conditioner. It's a mixture of mineral oil, beeswax, and carnauba wax. The trick is to get it on there really thick, and I try to drip it down into the slots to make sure that I got coverage on everything. I put it on there really thick, and then I leave it there. I left it there for probably an hour. Once I've let it soak in for a while, I'll come back and I'll wipe everything off, and I like to take a rag and clamp it in the vise to get the excess out of the slots. You don't want to leave that stuff in there to harden too much. So here we have it, our overdone honey dipper. The walnut and maple, of course, look good together. Everybody knows that walnut and maple look good together. It's overdone. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to overdo it. I'm making a whole series of these overdoing it videos. Stay tuned. Look for more. Thank you for watching. Check me out on Patreon, patreon.com/Joe Pierce. Check me out on Instagram at Joe Pierce Maker. I post every day on Instagram. So yeah, thank you. Subscribe, share, like, all that stuff. Appreciate it. Have a great day.